Thank you for joining our webinar today. This is about the California Health Equality Interface Grants 1. I'm being optimistic and thinking that there might be a 2 and a 3, but we shall see. We are launched a set of webinars that you all get invitations to. It started in December. This is the third webinar on a variety of topics, all surrounding connecting healthcare in Santa Cruz County. And it says 2013, but that's just the year that we're in now and focused on. We think this is at least a 3 or 4 year effort to really get everyone connected and close as many of the gaps as we can. So our mission here is to improve the quality and efficiency of healthcare for all the stakeholders in Santa Cruz community. And this includes all of you that are in the healthcare provider role, as well as facilities, as well as patients themselves. So we're leveraging off of the various state and federal efforts to do health information exchange to make life better for you and for the patients. And we're doing that by delivering technology assistance, guidance, and information, best practices, and things like that to providers that we're trying to build a experience for you and for the patients ultimately to have a seamless integrated experience so that the information you need to treat a patient is at your fingertips and can better satisfy your patient, offer higher quality, better quality diagnoses, avoid redundant testing, and just overall improve the health. And many of these services are free or are included in your SCHIE membership, but some of them do have a cost, and we will do our best to make sure you know what is free and what has a cost. And we're trying to provide the services and tools to you to become meaningful users of electronic health records that are connected to the exchange. So we've adopted this language here to use, connect, and exchange. We're asking that everyone implement and use a certified EHR, connect the EHR to the HIE, and exchange data bidirectionally. Not just receive information, but send information, whether it's orders or referrals or chart notes, outbound, and again, not just inbound labs. We're looking for virtually everything that's needed that can safely help us provide better care. And we're asking you to exchange in the context of your daily workflow. Not like some of the programs that talk about testing exchange or demonstrating that you can do it, but we really want to make sure that you can do it. So a little bit of background here. I know many of you on the call have been involved in the interface grants, and there's been some changes. And the interface grants were first rolled out in 2012, and it was initially designed as a $10,000 per interface up to 100% of the cost, with multiple interfaces per applicant possible. So we'll talk a little bit more about the changes to the grant itself, but first I want to explain the background of the organizations that are involved. And I apologize, this is a little bit dense and a little tedious and lots of acronyms probably because of the government involvement, but it's important to understand the evolution and how we got here. So many of you, if not all of you, are familiar with Cali Connect, which is the governance entity for health information exchange in the state of California. They had been performing their job for about 2 years, and in September of last year, transitioned the running of its programs to UC Davis, to the Institute for Population Health Improvement. UC Davis renamed the program to be the California Health Equality, or CHEQ as they pronounce it, CHEQ. And part of what they inherited was the HIE connectivity grants that you all got involved with last summer and that we're here to talk about today. So I wanted to give that background because I know I've talked to many of you to say, hey, whatever happened? Did we win? We never heard anything. And it basically is all true, and it was driven by these changes in organization and a few other things. Just to add a few more acronyms to the pile. So the CHEQ people saw that this was a good and needed thing and expanded the interface grant program and are promoting something called HIE Ready, which is a program for the EMR vendors to subscribe to show that they can connect with Health Information Exchange and with other EMRs easily and at a reasonable price. And that program is going on now. All of our work so far has been in the context of making sure the EMRs are following the HIE Ready. And we'll talk about what those are in a few moments. CHEQ took over the infrastructure and the HIE expansion grants. They also did a number of HIE planning grants, and right now they're somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 health information exchanges in the state of California. Many of them are small, like Santa Cruz, and others are bigger, like the Inland Empire, with thousands of doctors and many, many facilities. So it ranged the entire gambit of size of organization, but there are, like I said, between 25 and 30 HIEs that are either operational in California or are in some stage of getting there. They're also working on something called the Provider Directory and Trust Framework, and this is so that providers that are not in the same community can easily find each other and safely exchange data. And it's using something called the DIRECT project. We're not going to talk about all this today, but this is some background for you. The other participant in the mix is the California Health and Human Services Agency, and they took over the Cali Connect work around security and integrating patient integrity of patient data. So they're working hot and heavy on finalizing and harmonizing the approach to maintaining the integrity of data as it's used in the context of exchange. You probably hear words like consent and permissible data and things like that. They're working on defining all of that, and in fact, Santa Cruz and some of you are helping with input to that program. So, long-winded, but here's the summary. In August and September of last year, we submitted more than $400,000 in grant requests to Cali Connect. You already heard that Cali Connect essentially transitioned its program to CHEQ, and we were notified last month that we would be awarded, as a group, $200,000 for all the interfaces in this round of grant funding. So there's a gap, and we have some ideas on how to close that gap, but let's keep moving and see how we're going to close those in the coming weeks. This is the last bullet here is quite important, which is that the work on this grant must be completed by July 31. So we barely have half a year to get this work done, and so time is short. I'm not going to go over this. You can print it out or show it to your technology vendor or support organization if you'd like. But I wanted to include it in the slide deck. It just shows the flows of data bidirectionally between sources and other doctors and clinics and hospitals and you. And it's quite comprehensive. And it just shows the division of responsibility and how the data flows. Again, I'm not going to go into that here. It's not important in the context of today's grants discussion. And I'm also not going to go into this. Many of you have seen this before. Many of you already know this, of who all is connected in Santa Cruz in some way. Some of them might be very minor ways. Some of them might be very major ways. but these are the key organizations, and many of you are either on this slide or you're grouped under one of the logos on this slide. So let's get into the potential interface components. I know that there was a lot of question about this back in August and September, and some people felt like, oh, well, an interface is one thing, and some of the language was, well, I have an interface. Well, what is an interface? And it's actually many different components can go into an interface. So some of you have some interfaces already, and this grant is going to help you close the gap and get more of the data interface. And some of you don't have an interface to the Health Information Exchange at all. You're using the web interface, if you will, but this would actually connect the data with the other providers and facilities into your EMR, and so that it is discrete, meaning it's structured data. The data has elements. It's not just words that you read on a web page or a piece of paper, but the data is actually coded and working behind the scenes for all of us. So the interface makes these things possible, and what we need to do is we need to work with you to identify what are the highest value interfaces for your practice. In some cases, let's look at labs. We have lab results that we can deliver to your practice from a number of different sources, but you may already have an interface. You may already have a Quest interface, and even though that's one of the ones that we can deliver, we wouldn't need to deliver that, and we wouldn't want to charge you, and you wouldn't want to have the duplicate data from that piece. So we're going to work with you on the discovery of what's needed, what makes the most sense for your practice. Right underneath lab results are referrals. Depending on the kind of practice you have, you may receive a lot of referrals, or you may send a lot of referrals, or you may send and receive referrals. So again, this is part of what I'm calling the discovery process that we need to go through here pretty rapidly to determine what the exact financial and technical needs are. I've highlighted a couple of things with an asterisk here: lab orders, radiology orders, consolidated, CDA, and these items are required for meaningful use stage 2. So we have a number of practices that are interested in these things. Anyone that has a certified EHR will be interested in those things. However, the requirement and the capability for many of your vendors is probably not there yet. It is for some. We know it is for Allscripts Enterprise. We know it's there for McKesson, but it's not there for all of the vendors. So again, this is part of our discovery process with you. So even though some of these things are not required until 2014, we'd like to get a jump on them now, and if we can use some funding from the government to pay for some of that, then that will be very good. By the way, consolidated CDA, which is a meaningful use 2 requirement, is essentially coded data around the narrative data types. And what that means is something like a discharge summary, instead of just being a transcribed document, it would have some structure around it so that it could be computed behind the scenes by the computer. So there's actually 9 different kinds of consolidated CDA that are required in meaningful use stage 2. And again, one of them is a discharge summary. So it'll make it more sensible to you, the human. It'll be more computable to the computer, but it's going to take us some work to get there. I know many of you have been experimenting with the CCD, or the Continuity of Care document. That's been around for a number of years. It's actually part of stage 1 meaningful use, but it was not required. However, it does have some benefit. So we have that on the list as potential interfaces that we want to explore with you. So here's the big matter, the timeline and the process. We're nervous because we only have 6 months. So the project ends July 31. That's the last date that we and you can demonstrate performance and get this paid for. So what that means is we've set the first step here of doing the interface paperwork and discovery. And what that's going to entail is you sending me an email, ideally, or calling me to tell me that you want to proceed with the discovery. There is no cost to you to proceed with the discovery and preparation of the paperwork. And it's going to involve us working with you and your vendor, and we need you and your vendor to work together with us on this. We can't do it for you. It's going to need to be a three-way partnership. In some cases, Santa Cruz HIE and PMG do have relationships with some vendors that we can, if you will, stand in their shoes, making it a little bit easier on this discovery process, but in some cases we don't. And having been through this many, many times, I can tell you that without your involvement, we will not succeed, and we all want you to succeed. So we have set a date of March 1, and I realize that's barely a month from now, of getting to a point of having this discovery done and getting a commitment letter from you and signed by your EMR vendor, if there's one involved, about committing to doing this, because at that point we're going to have allocated the funds and start spending money. And we need to succeed. We need to implement those people that sign a commitment letter and have that done at the outside no later than July 31. And given that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 50 individual interfaces that need to be built and tested, it's not going to work if it's the last week in July. So we need to start having some go-lives here actually in March and April and May. And that's what the CHEQ people are asking of us too. So once you sign the commitment letter, and you will see what you're signing, a little preview of it is that you're committing to spend the energy to do this and to test it, which is largely your role, and to use it. And if you fail to do that, there is a possible financial implication to you, again, if you or your vendor has quit or walked away in mid-process. Because once this process starts, we're spending money, we're allocating money out of the grant, and we need that commitment that we're all going to work together and succeed. If you cannot do a commitment letter by March 1, we're going to move you to the bottom of the pile, and we're going to move forward with committing with other practices and facilities that are ready to commit. We'll then begin our implementation and testing phase, which starts around the second or third week in February, and will, like I said, run out through July 31. So the next steps, I'd like you to email me to tell me that you'd like to proceed with the paperwork and discovery. Again, there's no cost to you for those items, but we are on a fairly short timeline to pull that together. The good news is that many of you and many of your vendors have already been in touch with us, so it could be very easy to get to agreement here. In some cases, since the quotes were issued last summer, many quotes expire after 30 or 60 days. It may simply be getting the vendor's attention, having them reissue a quote that's valid with dates, and having them commit that they will work on this with us in the time frame required. Once we hear from you, we'll pull together what we have. We'll set up a phone or an in-person meeting with you and your vendor if appropriate, and we'll be doing that discovery work and the paperwork. And just to reiterate, we're going to assist you in the discovery process, but we can't do it for you. We find that the EMR vendors, especially ones that we don't know very well, they will respond to you, their customer, but they don't respond to other third parties like us. So you have to tell them this is important to you, and we need your assistance there. And certainly we will be whispering in your ear every step along the way if there's any problem or if there's some additional assistance that we'd like from you with the vendors. So that's the end of the show, the end of the slideshow, and I want to tell you that this session is recorded, and we store these right now on the Physicians Medical Group Blue portal. Those of you that are PMG doctors and office managers and staff know about this portal. It does require a login. It's the same as your PMG email and email password. We've been storing the sessions down here on the bottom left under Connecting Healthcare. And we've got 3 or 4 events now underneath our belt, and the documents, the PowerPoints, and in some cases the video recordings are stored here. What we will be doing over the next few weeks is we'll be creating a public site for this, for Santa Cruz Health Information Exchange webinars and supporting documentation that's open to the public, not requiring a login like you will run into on this site. And the only difference, they'll be mirrors of each other, except the only difference is that if there is something that pertains to something that's PMG contracted provider only, then it would only be found here on this blue portal. And I'm going to navigate to Connecting Healthcare, just so you can see we've got a number of folders in here from our first seminar, which was our executive overview that was presented back in December. We just completed one on HIPAA, the changes to the HIPAA privacy and security laws that went into that were finalized in January and are going into effect finally in September. We've got the third one down is today's session, and then we have one planned for consent and EMR and resources. When you go into each one of these, and we'll try to make the public site we'll try to make it easier than this, but if you do go here, what you see is that I put the obsolete documents as well as today's document. So just in case you're curious of how did we get here, what the heck happened, I put both the Cali Connect interface funding support informational webinar that they presented in August, and then I put the one that we presented here in Santa Cruz in August, just for your background if you are trying to figure out how we got to where we are. So with that, I'm going to end the webinar and look forward to speaking to you and working with you on this exciting project.